He once stood in the ring as a talented kickboxer, disciplined, powerful, and dreaming of making it big in combat sports. But that same boy from Amsterdam would later become known as one of the most dangerous and unpredictable figures in the Dutch underworld. His name, Najib Himmich, better known as Ziggy. What makes this story so chilling is not only his lightning-fast rise in the international cocaine trade, it's above all the way the Mocro Mafia wars also destroyed his private life. On December 8, 2014, his girlfriend, Luana Luz Xavier, the mother of his children, was shot dead in the street. A brutal message that seemed aimed directly at Ziggy. From that moment on, he vanished without a trace. No police, no rivals, not even family members ever heard from him again. To this day, his body has never been found. In this video, we dive into Ziggy's story, from promising fighter to feared criminal, from the glory of the ring to the shadows of the underworld. Najib Himmich grew up in the streets of Amsterdam East. To outsiders he was, in his younger years, mainly a boy with talent. At the Musid gym, he trained day in, day out, surrounded by names that would later achieve international success. Ziggy had what it took: explosive punches, ruthless kicks, and a fighter's mentality that quickly earned him respect in the ring. In 2009, he traveled to South Korea, where he won 4 bouts in a single day and impressed with his relentlessness. He was even offered the chance to settle there permanently as a professional fighter. But Ziggy refused. In hindsight, that moment proved crucial, because while the ring offered discipline, the streets pulled at him with promises of money, power, and status. In the world of organized crime, his physical presence and uncompromising attitude were quickly in demand. His nickname Ziggy, once a sporting moniker, began echoing in very different circles. From a talented kickboxer, he slowly but surely turned into a player in the international cocaine trade. And just like in the ring, he would fight in the underworld with everything he had, until there was nothing left. He grew up in Amsterdam East, a neighborhood where opportunities and temptations lay side by side. For many youngsters, that meant a life between school, the street, and sport. For Ziggy, it soon became clear that school held little interest. He had too much energy, an irrepressible urge to measure himself against others, and he found that in combat sports. He joined the Musid gym, a gym with an iron reputation. There, he trained under figures like Fikri Tijardi and Dries Busato. His perseverance and natural talent made an impression. In a short time, he developed from a promising boy into a fighter competing in the A class. He fought at various events at home and abroad, building a reputation as explosive and merciless. One of the highlights of his career came in 2009 when he took part in a prestigious tournament in South Korea. In a single day, he managed to win 4 consecutive fights, something rare in the fight world. Organizers offered him a contract, a home, and even a car to settle there and break through further. But Ziggy chose to return to Amsterdam. In hindsight, that choice was symbolic. While a future as a professional fighter was within reach, the pull of street life was stronger. In the ring, he knew discipline and respect. But outside the gym awaited a world of fast cars, luxury, and power. He won admiration from friends and neighbors, giving him a status he still had to fight for in sport. Slowly, he began taking on jobs for figures already deeper in the underworld. At first, harmless: pass on a message, pick someone up, arrange small transports. But, as in combat sports, those who distinguished themselves quickly moved up a level. His nickname Ziggy now circulated not only in sports halls, but also in cafes, shisha lounges, and safe houses where deals were made. What began as the dream of a boy from Amsterdam to make it in the ring slowly drew him into a far deadlier arena: the international cocaine trade. When Ziggy turned his back on the ring, he felt increasingly at home in another arena: the underworld. His kickboxer's reputation gave him not only an intimidating presence, but also a network. In gyms and nightclubs, he met men who thought far bigger than he ever had in sport. These were figures who earned their money with kilos of cocaine rather than sporting victories. He took his first serious steps through connections in Amsterdam, quickly becoming known as someone who dared to make things happen and wasn't afraid to take risks. Ziggy was loyal as long as it suited him, but he thought ahead. He understood that in the drug trade you need more than muscle. You need nerve, vision, and the ability to switch between camps. Around 2007, he moved closer into the circles of Gwennette Martha, at the time one of the most powerful figures in the Dutch underworld. There, Ziggy learned how large-scale cocaine shipments were set up, how money flows worked, and how violence was used as leverage. His role started small, but his drive and ruthlessness made an impression. When Martha was sidelined by arrests, Ziggy presented himself as someone who could fill gaps and take responsibility. But Ziggy was never someone content with second place. Around 2013 and 2014, he moved ever closer to Samir's Scarface, Bouyakhrichan, another heavyweight in the Mocro Mafia, especially in Spain on the Costa del Sol, where Marbella and Benahavis served as meeting places for drug barons. Ziggy helped build a network linked directly to suppliers in South America and intermediaries in Morocco. His nickname spread there as well. Ziggy was seen as a charmer with flair, but behind that image was a man who would not hesitate to kill. He brought cocaine shipments from South America to the ports of Antwerp and Rotterdam and used Spain as a logistical hub. Yet there was danger in his methods. Ziggy was known for being willing to play rival camps against each other, depending on what benefited him most at the time. For some, that made him an indispensable ally. For others, a traitor who couldn't be trusted. In the underworld, that reputation is deadly. In a short time, Ziggy had evolved from a kickboxer with dreams into a pivotal figure in the international drug trade. But the higher he climbed, the more enemies he made. The Mocro War thundered on at full force when Najib Ziggy Himmich sought refuge in Spain in 2014. His reputation as a man who constantly switched sides had brought him power, but also an army of enemies. First, he was the confidant of Gwennette Martha. Later, he sought proximity to Samir Bouyakhrichan. For some, he was a valuable pawn. For others, a traitor who had already signed his own death warrant. When Bouyakhrichan was liquidated in August 2014 in Benahavis, it became clear that Ziggy was safe nowhere. He went to ground in Madrid, far from the spotlight. By mid-November, contact suddenly stopped. His partner, Luana, grew worried. She tried calling him, sending messages, but received no sign of life. 2 weeks later, she couldn't bear it anymore. She traveled to Madrid, to the hotel where Ziggy was staying. There, she did not find the man she was looking for, but a room full of questions. His passport was still there, his wallet, his clothes, even his phone. Everything indicated that he had disappeared from one moment to the next. For Luana, this was no ordinary absence. It was an ominous sign. After a few days without answers, she returned to Amstelveen, heavier of heart than ever. A week later, on December 8, 2014, fate struck. While she was traveling with her children and grandmother, she was shot dead in the street. Before her family's eyes, the mother of Ziggy's children became the victim of a cold-blooded execution. Everyone in the milieu waited tensely. What would Ziggy do now that the woman who had just searched for him in Madrid had been brutally murdered? Speculation was endless. Some said Luana was killed because she knew too much. Others saw it as a cruel attempt to lure Ziggy out of hiding. Whatever the truth, one thing was certain. This was a direct message to Ziggy. After the murder of his partner Luana in December 2014, the question on everyone's lips was, where was Ziggy? Police knew he was closely involved in the international cocaine trade, but never got him back in sight. In official files, he remained a shadow, suspected of large-scale shipments, mentioned in intercepted PGP messages, but elusive. Within the underworld, stories soon circulated. Some claimed that immediately after his disappearance in Madrid, Ziggy was kidnapped, that he fell into the hands of enemies who had grown tired of his games and that he met a gruesome end. Panorama wrote that he was likely killed bloodily in Spain as punishment for the way he had played camp against camp. According to those same sources, his death was handled quietly, far from the public eye. What makes this story even darker is that no body was ever found. No grave, no piece of evidence, only rumors. His passport, wallet, and phone were left behind in his hotel room. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. For the justice system, that made prosecution impossible. For his enemies, it was a triumph without witnesses. Yet his name kept echoing in court cases. Criminals claimed they had received money from him, even shortly before his disappearance. Others described him as someone who had gone too far, who had made too many enemies. His final trick, as Panorama put it, was that no one knew exactly who ultimately took him out. For his children and family, only emptiness remained. A mother murdered in the street, and a father who disappeared without a trace. For the underworld, Ziggy became an example of how hubris and betrayal inevitably lead to downfall. The story of Najib Ziggy Himmich ended like so many in the Mocro War, not with glory or wealth, but with silence and blood. His rise was spectacular, his reputation feared, but his willingness to play everyone against each other ultimately made him fair game. When Luana was murdered and he himself disappeared, it was clear that his power was broken for good. Panorama called it his final trick, an ending without certainty, a death without a body, and a name that continues to haunt the annals of the underworld.